Hey, Tommy, we've got some interesting news, and that is that used car prices are finally starting to, dare I say it, crash.
Well, you probably have realized that over the last couple of years, it seems like used cars have been getting more and more expensive, and we often see in the market that used cars are more valuable than new cars. But finally now, it looks like the tides are shifting, and in this video, we're talking about the top 10 cars that have seen the biggest decrease in price.
Yeah, so IC Cars did a study, and basically they looked at used car prices from December of 2022 back through September of 2022, basically the last quarter, and they compiled a list of the cars that have lost the most amount. And so in a typical TFL manner, we'll start with number 10 and work our way to number 1. I wish there was a thread that ran through all of these, like they're all sedans or crossovers or electrics, but there isn't. But at the end of this, we should have a discussion as to why used car prices are coming down, but not all used car prices, right?
Well, it's interesting because if you look at the average across all cars, it's actually up 0.6%. If you compare the percent price change from September to December, that's $214. So it's ever so slightly up compared to September, but I bet if we compared that to the previous months, that is a much smaller increase.
All right, so at number 10, Tommy, is the Audi SQ5. The average price as of December was $44,447, which is a 6.8% drop in price in the last quarter of last year, or $3,228.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Specifically, it points out the SQ5 model, and of course, IC Cars has a huge amount of data. They've got a great group of folks out there that process the data, but down 6.8% in just a matter of a couple of months is a pretty big drop.
Now, of course, the Q5 is a very popular mid-size crossover, and maybe the SQ5 being the performance variant of that is leading the way in terms of losing value, because obviously there's a much smaller market for that. All right, what's number 9?
Number 9 is the Toyota Camry.
Interesting.
So average used car price on a Camry, $25,521. That's down $1,912, or roughly 7%.
Yeah, so once again, as you know, sedans are a dying breed. Companies like Toyota and Honda are still selling sedans in America because they figure even though the pie is shrinking, they're going to have a larger segment of that pie. But in general, companies like Ford have walked away from sedans, GM to a large extent as well, and it makes sense that the Toyota Camry would be on the list.
Why don't you go in at number 8?
All right, number 8 is the Ford Eco, or do you say EcoSport?
Yeah, probably EcoSport. I think that's probably a better bet. Now, of course, recently discontinued, but we are talking specifically about used car values.
Yeah, no surprise here. Average price for the car is $20,064. It's down $1,515, 7%, and not one of my favorite cars. It's a car that competes against like the Jeep Renegade in that small crossover segment, and I think Ford brought it in. I think it's built in India, actually. Ford brought it in as kind of a stopgap to have a car that compete in that segment, but it's never been something that I would say I would recommend to any new car shopper.
Now, let's talk about
used car shopper.
Let's talk about something interesting. I want to take a pause here.
Yeah.
Because they also compared the percent of price change from 2021 to 2022, and I have these numbers here. Now, if you look at September, for example, the percent change is actually up 7.8%. But if you look at December, year over year, down 3%. And actually, it's been a steady decrease. 7.8% up in October, or in September, 3.6% up in October, down 2.1% in November, down 3% in December. So we see it was high and then it's coming down low.
Yeah. And obviously the reason for that is, well, the economy is cooling down, interest rates are up, and when you combine those two things, you're going to get prices coming down. And there was just a historical run-up on both new and used car prices that I think was unsustainable. So number 7, GMC Acadia, Tommy, down to $30,992, $2,590, 7.7% decrease.
Yeah, so a pretty big decrease on the Acadia. And like we were talking about, right, we've got a good mixture here of sports cars, actually, small crossovers, larger crossovers. It's kind of an interesting mix here. Acadia, of course, being a fairly large crossover, but down significantly. Number 6 on the list is a premium small crossover, the Jaguar E-Pace. That is not the electric one. That is this tiny gasoline one. $35,221 average transaction, and that's down 8% 28% or $3,052.
Yeah, I don't find that surprising at all. I'd have a hard time recommending a small premium car to anybody because it's a weird segment, right? You tend to have cost cutting in that initial entry level premium price class. So I would say you're better off to get a more expensive, like mainstream car, as opposed to a more expensive premium car. And I'm not just talking about Jaguar. I think BMW, in the smaller crossovers has that same problem. So does Mercedes. You feel like you're getting a Mercedes, but then when you sit in the thing, you're like, this Mercedes has some pretty large plastic amounts of swath and bits on it. You don't feel like you're sitting in a leather bound, expensive premium car. Boy, that was a mouthful that I messed up.
Yeah, not very eloquent.
Sorry, guys.
I'm not really sure what you're going there for all, but what you're saying is you'd rather have an expensive non-premium car than affordable premium car.
Yeah, exactly.
That
was a much better way of putting it.
Yeah. Okay, number 5 on the list. Speaking of expensive non-premium cars, the Toyota RAV4 down 8.9% or $2,766 for a transaction price of $28,383. Now, this is an interesting one. I think the reason we see such a nosedive in the RAV4 prices is like the market for RAV4s was so unbelievably hot to the point where like some used RAV4s were going for more than new ones because you couldn't get new ones. But now that things are cooling down a little bit, maybe now that supply is catching up with demand, we're starting to see, especially the used RAV4s, really cool down a lot in terms of their secondary market value.
So I spent too much time on Craigslist and Facebook looking at used cars, and I'm just seeing like used car prices well above what the market conditions are right now. And I used to do real estate, and I had a really smart mentor who taught me something. Maybe I can talk to you about this right now as a tip for all you used car sellers out there, right? And this is a very easy way to kind of see what the market is doing and see how you get the most money out of that market. So let's talk about this RAV4, which is basically $28,000, right? So let's say you're selling a RAV4 and the market is $28,000, but you think that the thing is worth $35,000. So you've priced it at $35,000, but the market is at $28,000. In other words, your bait is up here, but the fish are down here. And when the market is going down, the worst thing you can ever do is chase the market down. So let's wait another quarter, and that car goes down from $28,000 to $25,000. So then you figure out, well, 30 is too much, so you put your bait at 28, but now the market is at 25. In other words, the fish are down here and your bait is up here. And eventually, if you're going to want to sell that car, you're going to have to put your bait where the cars are. But by stair-stepping kind of this market and chasing it down, all you're guaranteeing yourself is that you're going to lose a lot of money on that car. So all of you sellers out there that I'm looking at, and you go to KBB or you go to wherever you get your used car prices and you figure that that's wrong and your car is worth $10,000 or $15,000 more, all you're doing is guaranteeing that you're going to make less money when eventually you do sell that car, or you're going to get to hold on to it.
Okay, next up on the list, number 4, the Hyundai Ionic Hybrid down a whopping 11%, $2,500 for a transaction price of $20,542. Coming in at number 3, the Ford Mustang, a performance car, down 11.5%, $26,852. That's down $3,495.
And that could be because they just unveiled and introduced a new Mustang, so people are excited about the new one and they want to get rid of their old one so they can buy a new one. Or it just could be that the Mustang is obviously not a daily driver and certainly not a kind of car that is much of a need, more of a want,
Yep, and then if we go to number 2, the Nissan Kicks. Now this is an affordable hatchbacky thing, down 11.9%, down to $20,046. Now my theory with the Kicks was, once again, supply constraint in terms of new, so that kind of propped up the price of the used ones. But let's be honest, it's not a fantastic car, and especially as new ones start hitting the showrooms, those used ones are really going to depreciate quickly, as you might expect out of a Kicks.
Now I always forget, is the Kicks the cash guy in Europe, or is that the Rogue Sport?
That's the Rogue Sport. Yeah, the Kicks is a smaller front-wheel drive only one.
Okay, so we're back with the EcoSport in that same...
EcoSport.
Yeah, well, depending on how you say it. We're back in that segment.
Ford will tell you EcoSport.
All right, drum roll, number 1, please.
Yeah, so the Tesla Model 3. Now, keep in mind, the second biggest change, 11.9%. The first biggest change of the Model 3, down 16.8%, a whopping $8,822 to a average used car transaction price in December of 22 of $43,817.
Now, of course, the caveat there is that does not include the recent price drop, which Tesla just initiated, which is another $3,000. So you're probably looking at more like $40,000 or less, depending on how old your your car is. And then, of course, the reason we've got the Model Y behind us is because Tesla just dropped the price of the Model Y a staggering $13,000, Tommy.
Yeah, that's a pretty big drop. That's a huge drop, actually. But we're talking Model 3, which is a few $1,000s cheaper than it was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and of course the Model Y is a crossover and it's got more practicality, so it probably is a much more attractive vehicle to a larger segment of people. Having said that, Tommy, electric car prices are finally starting to come down. As you know, we just bought the Bolt. We bought that for like $27,000, and it's great to see that electric car prices are becoming affordable so that more people, especially people who hate electric cars, can actually maybe try them and see if they actually hate them because of their politics or hate them because of the way they perform.
You know what's interesting?
What?
So this study actually goes a lot deeper. And it also talks about the cars that increased in value.
Oh, let's talk about those. So thank you, IC Cars. I appreciate the fact that you guys are so thorough in your methodology.
So over the past 4 months or so, the number one car that...
I don't want
to go down because we're going to be here for 1,000 years.
No, I'm curious. Just go quickly down the top 10.
Okay, number 10 with an increase of 9% is the Corvette. Number 9 with an increase of 9% is the Acura MDX. 8 is actually the 7 Series. 7 is the Cadillac Escalade ESV. 6 is the Maserati Ghibli.
So far, I would stop you and say those are very low production cars, all of them.
Not the MDX.
Yeah.
That's a pretty high production car.
Yeah.
5.
I think RDX is their most popular, but anyway, go ahead.
But they sell tens of thousands of MDXs.
Yeah.
It's the best-selling 3-row, I think, maybe ever. 5 is the GLS. Mercedes.
Also small production.
4 is the Maserati Levante.
Very small production.
3, Mercedes-Benz S-Class, which is interesting. Let's talk about the S-Class. It's actually gone up $10,000 since September in the used market.
Okay, but is that because the new market has gone up that much as well and it's being reflected in the used car market? So we know that new car prices have gone up at the beginning of the year or close to the beginning of the year. The average new car price in America was like in the high 30s and it crept all the way up to I think 48 was the last time I saw that number.
So what you're saying is on these really premium cars, because they're getting more and more expensive, it's dragging up the used market.
That's what I'm thinking is happening, yeah.
So number 2, up 14.8% compared to September, is the 911 by Porsche.
Yeah, once again, same thing. Prices of 911 have come up. You used to be able to actually, you could get a standard Carrera 2 for just under $100,000, and I think that was definitely on purpose. No longer, my man.
And number 1, the car that's appreciated the most in the used market since September.
Give me a hint. I want to guess at this.
It's big and it's comfy.
It's big and it's comfy. Oh, that's a lot. A Suburban?
No, I already said it. The Cadillac Escalade.
That was close.
But the standard Escalade, not the ESV, up 14.9% since September, or $10,000.
So that one I think I understand. You know, those 3-row vehicles are having their moment in the sun right now in America. Everybody seems to want a big old American SUV. So anything with 3 rows, even mid-size SUVs and crossovers like the Telluride with 3 rows are very popular. I think people just love that 3rd row because, when you're going to the soccer game and you got to take the neighbor kiddos with you, it's a handy thing to have.
Not quite.
No.
Because if you compare 22 compared to 21, the cars with the biggest drop in prices, 3-row SUVs.
All right, never mind. Forget everything I said.
So if you compare year over year, the car that's lost most in the used market
is a Suburban.
Nissan Armada.
Well, okay, but that's a whole different ball of wax.
Car that's lost the second most? Ford Expedition Max.
Okay, how about 3rd most?
E-Pace again.
Okay, all right.
And then one last thing I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Year over year, the top 3 cars that actually gained used car value, all electrified.
Okay, what are they? Start with 3.
The Chevy Bolt EV.
Hey, and they drop prices on that.
Yep, but according to the study, compared December 22 to December of 21, up 20.8%.
Wow.
Number 2?
I think that's also because, we just bought one, and when I went on the initial drive of the initial Bolt, I wasn't impressed by it. I just felt like it was a economy car that they had electrified and made very expensive. Because if you remember back in the dark old days, those cars were like $38,000, and it always felt like a 30 or a high 20s car that was selling way above market. And now that they've actually lowered the price by $6,500 last year on the Bolt, it actually isn't the right price point. So the car was never bad; it was just priced badly.
Yeah, but
like the ELR.
You're not going to believe this, but the average used car price in December of 22 of a Bolt is more than a new one.
Yeah, I believe it.
$27,339. Yeah. Number 2. What do you think is number 2, year over year?
Give me a hint. I have no clue.
The Nissan Leaf.
Oh,
Up
interesting.
20.9%. Average car price of a Nissan Leaf, $28,000.
I think 2023 is going to be the year of electrification. I think that, you're going to have this confluence. I'm not going to use the word perfect storm because it's overused, but this confluence of factors that are going to have more of a general impact on the car market, where people are actually going to start to experience electric cars more than they had in the past.
And the number one car that's gained value since last year in the used market, Toyota Prius Prime, up 22.5% year over year.
Yeah, I could see that. It's tons of room, great fuel economy, and not great all electric range. But I guess I think it's like 20 miles or something if I remember right. But I guess if you're commuting to work less than 20 miles and you can plug it in at home and at work, drive for pennies.
So lots of really good data we could dive into here. They broke it down by shape. They also broke it down by hybrid and electrification. But year over year, hybrids are up a lot. Non-hybrid and non-electric cars are down, actually.
So, we just did a bunch of electric car videos. I had the Hummer EV breakdown on me in Moab, and I was reading the comments, and everybody's like, I would never buy an electric vehicle. It's just a computer, yada. And it's all true. But there's two basic fundamentals that I think will outweigh all of those kind of reactions that people have to electric cars who hate them because of the politics or because of the fact that they're losing their beloved, internal combustion engine. Number one is the cost of electricity, which right now is still dirt cheap, right? When you plug it in at home. And Tommy, you're doing a great video with our Bolt. Tell them what you're doing.
Oh yeah, I'm doing a level 1 versus level 2 charging comparison. But what's the next thing?
And the cost of maintenance, or no cost of maintenance.
And no, I don't think those are the two most important at all.
You don't think so? I think the economics of it, they're cheap to operate and cheap to maintain, outweighs all the other negatives.
The number one thing that's going to drive EV prices.
Okay, what in your opinion?
Fuel costs.
Well, that's the same thing.
No.
Oh, you're saying that the
gasoline
costs are going to, well,
I think
it's the other side of the coin.
But it's the more important side of the coin, because people can more clearly see the gasoline cost than their electric cost. People are much more aware that they're spending $60, $70, $80 at a gas pump than spending another $20 on their monthly electric bill.
So at home, we're charging our Bolt for 17 cents a kilowatt hour, right? Which is, nothing. So you're saying people don't see that, but they do see if they go to the pump and have to pay $4 a gallon.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Remember, go to alltfl.com. And if you want to deep dive into any of this stuff, check out our podcast, right?
That's right. Yeah, check out TFL Talk on all your podcast platforms.
Yeah, Nathan and I kind of do breaking news and interesting things that are happening in the car world, while Tommy does a bonus podcast on that same channel about classics.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. So be sure to check it out. Check out TFL Bids if you want to bid on this week's cool vehicle, which is a 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee 5.9 liter.
And next week we're selling what?
Selling the Bronco, so it's going to be up there.
First edition Bronco for sale. And we've maintained it because that's what we do. All right, see you guys next time. Ciao.